Can you all hear me? Tom?
I can hear you, Mayor.
Okay. How about the council members? Can you hear me?
I do.
Trish? Jim, can you hear me?
You're muted, Jim. You're muted. You're muted.
Tom might think you're muted too, Mayor, just because your sign says you're muted. So that might be why Tom's not responding.
Texted him so he knows.
Okay. Hold your,
Is Scott Soroika on this evening?
I am. Hi, Mayor.
Okay, great. And Rhonda, can you hear me? Rhonda? Boy, we're having a lot of problems this evening. Sorry. She's there. She's just not responding. About the attorneys, give me a thumbs up sign if you can hear me. Great.
Councilmember Martin can hear you.
Okay, super. Okay, well, why don't we try to go ahead and get started. We'll see if we're ready for showtime here. Let's call the Johnston City Council meeting number 20 or actually it's the Johnston City Council work session number 20-18 to order. Cindy, roll call, please.
Councilmember Cope,
Here.
Evans. Councilmember Evans,
Here.
Martin,
Here.
Reddy,
Here.
Soroka.
Here.
I'll read the COVID-19 statement. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic and in accordance with Governor Reynolds' March 19, 2020 proclamation, suspending the regulatory provisions of Iowa Code Section 21.8 or any other statute imposing a requirement to hold a public meeting or hearing, the City of Johnston will conduct meetings electronically with the public allowed to attend per instructions denoted on the meeting's particular agenda. Meeting minutes will continue to be posted per the city's normal course of business. So moving on to the agenda items. The first item that we have this evening is continuation from September 15, 2020, the dangerous dog appeal hearing and motion to affirm, modify, or reverse the decision of the city administrator. The hearing of the appeal of the decision of the city administrator, Jim Sanders, was dated August 24th, 2020, and it was upheld a previous decision by Johnston Police Chief Dennis McDaniel. This appeal was by Dr. Rachel Sokol, owner of the dogs Tess and Marley, whereby she contested the finding by Jim Sanders and Chief McDaniel that said dogs were found to be dangerous under Johnston City Code Section 55. So let's go through who is present for the continuation of the September 15th hearing that is with us this evening. And I will call out the council member's name, and if you just, again, could indicate that you are here for this hearing. Rhonda Martin?
Here.
Tom Cope?
Here.
Suresh Reddy?
Here.
Tim Evans?
Here.
Scott Soroika?
Here.
I believe we also have the Chief of Police, Dennis McDaniel, with us. Is that correct?
Here.
And Chief, do we have any other officers with us this evening for the hearing?
No, Madam Mayor, just me tonight from the police department.
Okay. We have City Attorney Tim Pearson with us this evening.
Here.
City Prosecutor Larry Handley.
Here.
I saw Attorney Dan Kesselwick
Yes, Madam Mayor.
and And do we have Billy Mallory with us this evening?
I am observing, yes.
Okay, how about Dr. Rachel Sokol? Do we have anyone else that is with us this evening on this Zoom meeting, listening in or attending for whatever purpose the hearing this evening? Is there anyone else on the line other than city staff?
Community Service Officer Parrish is present as well.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay. Well, at the end of the hearing on September 15, 2020, Attorney Kesselwick asked that the record remain open for additional evidence that Mr. Kesselwick believed the council would deem necessary in order to make a decision in this matter. There was no resistance by the city council, and thus that request was granted. Pursuant to the guidelines that I provided at the end of the September 15, 2020 hearing, Dr. Sokol was given until 5 o'clock p.m. on September 17, 2020 to submit her additional evidence, and the city was given until 5 o'clock p.m. on September 18, 2020 to provide a response. On September 17, 2020, prior to 5 o'clock p.m., Mr. Kesselwick submitted an affidavit from Dr. Rachel Sokol. On September 18, 2020, prior to 5 o'clock p.m., City Attorney Tim Pearson and City Prosecutor Larry Hanley provided an affidavit of Chief Dennis McDaniel. Both of these affidavits were forwarded to me and to all the council members for their review and consideration for tonight's hearing and the council's decision in this matter. So before we close the record in this matter, is there anything further that any of the attorneys would like to say on behalf of their respective clients? And I'll start with Mr. Kesselwick.
Just briefly, Madam Mayor, at our prior hearing on September 15th, I referenced the likelihood or possibility of obtaining an affidavit from someone at Amazon attesting to their policies. We've learned that the alleged victim was not employed by Amazon, and without the benefit of discovery or anything else, we're not able to obtain or locate who her employer was. So I just wanted to make that clarification. I had intended to find an affidavit, but since she's not employed by Amazon, we could not obtain one. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Mr. Hanley? Do you have anything further to share with the council?
Nothing further other than that information is news to me. I've not heard any reference to that indication of being unemployed by Amazon until it was just offered to council at this time. I'm not sure that I understand why that's been a secret, if in fact that's the position of the defendant, but we have not heard that prior to just this moment.
We'll go ahead and close the record, and time now is for the council to make a decision on this matter. We can take comments from the council first and then a motion, or we can do a motion first and then take comments. What would be the preference?
Mayor, this is Councilman Cope. I'm happy to make some comments and then probably make a motion at the end of my comments as well.
Is that agreeable to everyone else? If not, let me know. Okay, well, let's hear your discussion and comments first.
Thank you.
Councilman.
Thank you, Mayor. So it appears in this case, it doesn't appear that there's a question about whether Mrs. Sokol's dogs bit the victim, Miss Heather Isaac, as Miss Isaac was attempting to make this delivery to the Sokol home. Instead, Miss Sokol, through her attorneys, claims that the dog bite was justified because this type of delivery constitutes trespass on her property.
And she makes this claim even though she's unable to provide any evidence that would give a delivery person such as Miss Isaac a reason to believe that Amazon deliveries are not to be made at this address in the typical manner that are made throughout our community at your front door. There's no evidence that Amazon received instructions from Mrs. Sokol establishing an alternative delivery protocol, such as the one Mrs. Sokol just tried to describe in her affidavit. In the hearing that was held on September 15th, the council specifically requested from her attorneys that this information be included in the affidavit. Her attorneys acknowledged that request, but failed to include that information in the affidavit. Nor is there any evidence that there's an adequate signage on the Sokol property to instruct Miss Isaac that there is another alternative location on the property to drop a package other than the typical drop location for these packages. Ms. Sokol describes a trailer in her affidavit, but does not provide any evidence that such a trailer is marked as a designated drop spot for packages. Again, this documentation was requested at the September 15th hearing, and her attorneys failed to include it in the affidavit. The beware of dogs or private property signs clearly do not accomplish the task that Mrs. Sokol believes it accomplishes. While it does provide Ms. Isaac some warning, importantly, it does not instruct Mrs. Isaac what to do next. Ms. Isaac has a job to do, to deliver a package to Mrs. Sokol's residence. Mrs. Sokol has failed to adequately provide sufficient evidence that Ms. Isaac or anyone else in her position should deviate from the standard operating procedure for these types of deliveries. Ms. Isaac has no reason to believe that she did not have the implied consent of Ms. Sokol to deliver this package per standard practice for Amazon deliveries, and thus Ms. Isaac's actions do not constitute trespass. And given the nature and severity of these dog bites and the location on the body in which they occurred, I also believe that there is sufficient evidence for the dangerous dog declaration. Based on that, at the appropriate time, I would make a motion pursuant to Johnston City Ordinance 55-10 subsection 7 to affirm the order of the city administrator upholding the dangerous dog determination.
Thank you, Councilman Cope. Other council members, comments?
This is Suresh. I don't have actually any comment, but I agree with what Councilman Tom mentioned that, and I agree with what he said. So I would like to also say that I affirm what Jim Sanders' decision on this.
Thank you, Councilman Reddy. Others? Any other comments from council members? I can make comments. I can make comments, right?
Make the motion. Oh, yes, you make comments, although you're not a voter. Yes.
I know.
Sorry.
I understand. Sorry for the sidebar there. I just wanted confirmation from the attorney. Hearing no other comments from council members, I'll just offer my thoughts on this. I don't have a vote in this, but if I were to vote, I would also affirm the prior decisions of the chief of police as well as the city administrator. I believe that the facts support that the Sokol dogs meet the definition of dangerous dog in Johnston's Code of Ordinances, section 55.101. The Sokol dogs attacked the Amazon delivery driver without provocation, which resulted in serious injury to the Amazon delivery driver. I'm unpersuaded by any arguments that trespass occurred and the trespass exceptions in section 55.11(4) and 6 should apply. I've reviewed the AG's opinion. The AG's opinion, cited by Sokol's attorneys, supports a conclusion that implied consent was granted by Sokol to the delivery driver under Iowa Code Section 716.72A2. Dr. Sokol ordered the package and arranged delivery of the package by Amazon. The delivery driver had justification for being on Dr. Sokol's property. She was delivering the package that Dr. Sokol ordered. The delivery driver was simply doing her job. There is no evidence submitted by Dr. Sokol that she communicated to Amazon any special handling of the package by Amazon. And in fact, the record indicates just the opposite. Sokol property was not flagged by Amazon, and there were no specific instructions given to Amazon regarding the delivery. The trespass signs and the delivery driver's awareness of the trespass signs are relevant only if the delivery driver did not have justification for being on the property. She had justification, there was implied consent, and she was not trespassing. Any other comments before we take the motion? Well, Tom, or Councilman Cope, do you want to make a motion?
Yes, I'll make a motion to affirm the order of the city administrator upholding the dangerous dog determination.
Is there a second?
I second it.
There's a motion and a second. Cindy, vote please.
Councilmember Cope,
Yes.
Martin? Martin?
She's not there, but she just sent a chat saying yes.
Ready?
Yes.
Soroka?
Yes.
Evans?
Abstain.
Cindy, can we see if we can get Councilwoman Martin back on live?
Yes, I am
Video.
working on that now. Okay, she should be, here she comes. Councilmember Martin? Councilmember Martin?
Yay.
Okay.
I apologize. My internet is terrible. Sorry.
The vote was four in favor of the motion, 1 abstention. The motion passes. I just want to, thank everyone who was on this evening participating in this hearing, as well as the hearing on September 17th.
Mayor,
Yes.
since we have Mrs. Sokol's attorneys still on, I'd like to just maybe ask a quick question to the police chief regarding next steps in this matter regarding, I realize our city ordinances require that if Ms. Sokol wants to keep the dog that's been determined as a dangerous dog on her property, there are various requirements that she has to do, notification requirements that have to happen. So I just kind of, is there an opportunity for Chief McDaniel to indicate the next steps in that process? Because I think it's very important that we implement those processes.
Chief?
Yes, sir. Councilmember Cope, to answer your question, we've already communicated through City Attorney Tim Pearson to Dr. Sokol's counsel, advising of the parameters that we needed to have them meet and how they can work with us on that to send photographs of some of the structures and the muzzles and some of the other requirements of the ordinance. So those are already in active communication, and we'll be following up through the attorneys yet this week to try to receive confirmation.
Great, I'd appreciate if you can keep us abreast of implementation on those items. Thank you.
Is there anything further on this matter? Okay, well then we'll move on to the next agenda item. Thanks, all. The next agenda item is the report of the Johnston Public Library for fiscal year 2020.
This is Eric, the library director. Each year around this time, we present an annual report to the council mandated by ordinance. It requires kind of some basic information from the library. We always try to include more detailed information about what's been going on in the past year. This year has been unusual, of course, for everyone. I'm going to turn it over to Katie Fiala, the current board president, to kind of detail what's in the report.
Hello, Mayor, Council. Thank you for having me tonight. We've pulled out some highlights from the full report that you have, and I'm going to split my remarks into two pieces. First, sort of our normal programming for the year, and then changes and things we did after COVID-19. So nearly 9,800 children, teens, and adults attended programs in fiscal year 20 in person. We added some new ongoing programs last year, including Pause to Read. That's a program where early readers can sign up to read to a therapy dog. Tabletop Gaming Club for kids and families to try out new board games. And Kids in the Kitchen International Edition, where elementary age kids can learn cooking skills by preparing international foods. Other ongoing programs are our 2 ESL programs. We have story times for infants through preschoolers, book clubs for kids, teens, and adults, monthly knitting and crafting get-togethers, yoga for kids and their parents, and early out programming each Wednesday for teens, and those are the early outs through the school district. In addition to our ongoing programs, our staff organized special programs, and this year they included musicians, jugglers, magicians, other presenters for kids, coding, music, programs for teens, as well as cooking, genealogy, and other adult classes. So moving to our COVID-19 changes, the library closed to the public in the middle of March. Library staff then began producing programs for online viewing, including story times, yoga classes, craft ideas, and book clubs, and those were viewable on Facebook or Zoom, and they had over 17,000 views through the end of June. We also continued with our summer reading program, which is one of our very popular programs. It's for adults, kids, and teens, and they track their reading to win prizes. Here, it was accessible from outside the library, and patrons could participate online, or they could pick up a paper log from the library to track their reading. When we were closed in March and we stopped circulating our physical materials, our ebooks, e-audiobooks, and e-magazines were in demand, and those are accessed through the Bridges State Consortium. And to reduce wait times for our Johnston readers, we use some of our funds that have been allocated for physical materials to buy more copies of those digital items instead. In early June, we were able to offer patrons curbside pickup of holds by appointment, which has been very popular. Between June 2nd and June 30th, staff checked out nearly 8,000 items for over 1,400 curbside appointments. So their patrons place their holds online, staff gather them and bring them out to the person in their car in the parking lot of the library. In addition to our programs and circulating materials, we also provide a number of services to support the needs of the community. Some of the services provided by our library are computer and Wi-Fi access, faxing, copying, printing. Patrons use these to find employment, apply for citizenship, connect with family and friends, and just do other day-to-day responsibilities. Our full report includes all of those statistics about our computer and Wi-Fi use. We also have meeting space that is in demand when we're open to the public. We had nearly 4,700 visitors use our meeting space and study rooms in fiscal year 20. And those are everything from one-on-one tutoring in our small rooms to large meetings of 100 people. For those in the community who cannot actually come to the library due to illness, disability, or other reasons, our circulation department delivers books and other materials via our home delivery program. In fiscal year 20, staff made nearly 200 stops to deliver more than 2,600 items, and those are delivered to places including Eden Crest at Green Meadows, Cornerstone Commons, Macaulay Terrace, Martina Place, Bishop Drum, Ahepa, and Wynwood Apartments. And since we've reopened, we've restarted several services to deliver at these places. We had 3 infrastructure projects in fiscal year 20. First, a complete remodel of the public restrooms that included new tile, counters, and stalls. Second, we replaced our security camera system. And third, we revamped the AV controls in our large meeting room. So on behalf of the library board and staff, we'd like to thank the council for your continued support.
Well, thank you, Katie, for the report, and thank you for your service to the residents of Johnston. You know, the library never ceases to amaze me on what you do and the kind of the innovative approaches you take to things. You know, what could be more challenging than having the doors closed, you know, in the middle of the year, and then continuing to try and provide services to our residents. But you know, you've shown again that you're up to the challenge, and you've just done a fantastic job. So thanks to you, thanks to the entire library board, and of course to all of our staff at the library. You're just doing an outstanding job. Anything else from the council? Questions?
Could you, whether it's Katie or Eric, and I'm sorry, maybe you mentioned it and I just didn't catch it, but what is the current status of the library as far as open to the public, and what's the plan?
This is,
I missed that.
no, this is Eric. We're open a limited number of hours, 10 to 6 Monday through Thursday, 10 to 5:30 Friday and Saturday for computer use and browsing. We've not been terribly busy, so typically we take appointments for those services, but we've been able to accommodate anyone that walks up and wants to use a computer or to browse. Honestly, these in-building services are less popular right now than our curbside services, which are 7 days a week. People can place holds online. They get a notice by email or text typically, and then they make an appointment to pick their items up curbside. That's what's taking the majority of staff time right now, not these in-person services, but we are open for some of the, you know, kind of traditional services we offer when times are normal.
And when you say browsing, you're talking about somebody coming in and just looking through the stacks?
Right. When they make an appointment, they can bring their kids. You know, a lot of times, especially with children's materials, it's hard to browse online. So people value bringing their kids in and being able to pick out picture books in person. So some of that, and just, you know, people who don't want to have to find materials on their computer and place holds, they like coming in and looking through the stacks. Right now, honestly, we're seeing fewer than 10 people in the building at a time. Those in-person services, like I said, are just not terribly popular. But I feel like it's valuable, especially for computer use. We're seeing a lot of people coming in that need to print documents, whether it's for their own classes or classes for their kids, apply for jobs, that sort of thing.
That's very helpful. Thank you.
Other questions or comments, Council? Thank you, Katie and Eric. Yeah. We'll move on to the next agenda item, and that is to review the revised Town Center Concession Building metal panel sign. I'm guessing that is Adam.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Yes, we have for any final comments here this evening the current draft of the 3 metal signs that would go in between the concession stand building and the restrooms underneath that canopied area. Cindy, if maybe just as a reminder, you could pull up that first attachment.
Working on it.
Okay. Or if you want to pull that up at home, I know it's a little slow there. So that's the original design, just to give you a sense of its placement. And if you could go back and pull open the third attachment, which is the 9/16/20 sign proposal. We put the conversation on pause a little bit as we worked through the discussions on the revised logo. And then as we settled that at the last council meeting, the Juice Box team worked to implement some of the previous suggestions that the council had talked about for this version of the sign, including the new logo, addition of some kites and some other items. We circulated this through the committee and we got a few other comments. So if you could pull open that third attachment, it says current. So this final version incorporates those final comments. I'll talk through a couple of those and see if we want to stick with those or maybe revert back to the version that came out last week. So starting on the left there, you'll see kind of a change on the bike path. What they're trying to incorporate in kind of the middle section of the left panel is really what the town center retail establishments are. So we have that archway, which will hopefully be installed in between the buildings on the intersection of 62nd and Merle Hay. You've got some representations there of shopping and ice cream and sandwiches. And then looking down on that, you've got the bike trail leading into the town center and the music sort of coming out of that town center area. The center panel is the current logo. And then on the right panel, we replaced what was sort of a cloud image before on the amphitheater to try to clarify what that structure was. I will say there's some design restrictions that we're working on with this metal cut paneling, so it's a little hard to create perfect representation sometimes of the images that we're trying to create here. But the addition of those music symbols and replacement of the clouds there on that amphitheater stage in the top right. There was previously a concessions building kind of in the middle on the left. They tried to draw in the art sculpture ripples that'll be in the town center. Personal taste, I guess, I don't know if it really works with this art medium. I think the concessions building might be a little bit more understandable. It just sort of looks like a weird shape to me. But welcome any council comment on that. And then you've got ice skating and sort of representation of outdoor games and the splash pad in there. So they'd like to begin work on fabricating this sign in the near future. If there's any final revisions the council would like to see or reversion back to any components in last week's version, that 920 or the 917 one, we can certainly go back and recreate that section as needed. But welcome any comments either this evening or follow-up email tomorrow, and then hopefully we'll get them going on that so it can be installed as that building's getting completed.
Well, Adam, I was the one who raised the question about the building that was intended to be the concession building, and I thought it looked like some sort of a maintenance shed. I agree. I don't think that representation of ripples does much for me either. So, you know, something different there. But if we're going to go with the concession building, I think it needs to look different than what was there before. I also raised questions about the what's inside the amphitheater, and I'm not sure that works either. So I think we need to work on that a little bit. And then I have a question. And thanks to everybody for their work on this. It's getting there, I think. The chess pieces, are we going to have some sort of a lawn chess opportunity, or why is that there?
Yeah, there's an equipment list that hasn't been finalized yet as we're trying to work with identifying that final venue manager. But in that list, there are a number of yard games, including kind of a large, small child-sized chess board. So I think that's kind of where they're grabbing that representation from.
This is Councilman Cope. I would sort of say I like this version better than the previous version. To me, it feels more like what Johnston is. I think the only thing that I would sort of suggest is it feels like we're really emphasizing a lot of things that are part of the town center as if there's nothing else in the community. And so, you know, I don't get a sense of like a Johnston neighborhood or you know, and maybe that's a little bit more on the left-hand panel a little bit. But I think we're a lot closer and than we were off the original version. To me, this feels a lot more like Johnston to me. And so I think we're getting a lot closer and close enough to be pretty close to final from my perspective. So.
I'll jump in and agree with the mayor that the Ripples things to me looks like a steak from the Flintstones, and then the amphitheater looks like a fireplace that plays music.
Yeah.
So if those two things could be tweaked a little bit, I'm good with the rest. Thanks.
This is Suresh. Adam, on the left panel, there's a kayaking and a duck. So I don't think that's part of the town center. So this whole panel, I mean, whole thing that we're talking about, are we just trying to represent only the town center, or as Councilman Tom says, the city of Johnston?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. We're maybe hearing a little bit of both on that. It can be anything council wants. Again, I think we have to be respectful of the median, that you can't get too many line works and interconnected lines with holes in the center of an existing piece. So I think they're just trying to kind of create the idea that it's the center of community and there's activities here and incorporate a lot of things that will be in the town center. But there wasn't an in-depth discussion of whether we wanted to focus exclusively on what's in the town center or represent the city of Johnston at large. And of course, many elements of the town center will be built out over the next 5 to 10 years as well. So we don't have all that information necessarily on hand either.
Okay. So the focus is not actually done. So I'm just curious. All the panel, everything imaged on both the panels, almost everything looks pointed towards the city Johnston Town Center, except for that little lake and the lady kayaking and a duck up there. So we either focus on the town center or we either focus on the city. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think I understand your point there. Is that the general preference of the council?
Well, I think you can do both. I mean, I don't think you do one or the other. And for instance, we have the kite references, which are, I presume, the kites on the green, which doesn't happen at the town center, but that doesn't. But I still think that's something that's an important part of Johnston. I really like the canoeing thing because that's something that happens in Johnston, you know, at Terra Park or on Beaver Creek. So when I saw that, I really liked that. And so to me, I think it should have elements of both the town center and the community. And I think they've done a nice job of that. And I think, you know, I think Councilman Evans has highlighted a couple of good tweaks on the fireplace and the stake. And I think if we can hammer out those two things, and then from my perspective, it looks really good.
I agree with you, Councilman Cove. I agree that that's true. All I'm saying is that there's only one thing the city. Can you go back to that image, please? So the only thing that actually stands out there is that Terra Park and Lake, and everything else in this panels are just the town center.
You know, one thing maybe to think a little bit about is a lot of what we're representing here is activity that occurs in the summertime. If we're going to replace Ripples, and I don't know yet what to do with the amphitheater, but we might want to think about some of our winter activities too, whether that's cross-country skiing or we do have the ice skating. But we want it to be a fun place to be, regardless of the season. So maybe we need to think a little bit more about, you know, some of the activities that occur in other seasons.
I'm hearing maybe the general sense that we're close but not quite there. Are there a couple of folks, council members or the mayor, that want to kind of get on an email chain and we can try to finalize this that way so they can get going, or is there a general sense you'd like to see a finalized version come back in front of the council?
I'll be glad to help out any way you need.
Me too.
All right, well, I'll give this information back to Juicebox and see what we can come up with, and Jim and Paula circulate any revisions that we get back through you, and if need be, we can bring it back. Otherwise, hopefully they can get going here shortly.
Great. Thank you.
If it's time sensitive, I think if you've got some input there from the members of the council, I don't know that it necessarily has to come back to the full group. It's one person's opinion. If it's time sensitive.
I think they do have some time. I think they're just, I guess the circumstances are that Juicebox kind of did this as a favor. It wasn't in their original contract. And so we might need to revisit compensation for them as they continue to work on this.
Okay, anything else on that? If not, we have a few minutes. Jim, do we have some things under city council comment or staff comments that we can cover?
Yes, just a couple things. I have some items I can cover now fairly quickly, and then we can follow up on the rest of them at the end of the council meeting. I just wanted to report to the council that the spring cleanup took place last week. And there was a significant amount of items put out on the curb. Actually, the spring cleanup usually takes a little bit over 3 days. We usually leak into Thursday, and we actually used the whole week last week. I think part of that may be because we usually do it in April, and this happened to be in September, so I think people probably had more stuff to put out there. And then, you know, COVID, I think people had time to clean things out. So, but anyway, it went well. I think it was a success all around, you know, as far as giving up people the opportunity to clean up their property. So we'll have some conversations with the Public Works Committee as far as, you know, what the spring cleanup might look like for next year, assuming we might get back to more of a normal schedule, so that we'll have that conversation. Wanted to talk a little bit about Beggars Night, which is typically on, well, in Johnston, it's on the 30th of October. And what we're doing right now, there's been a lot of conversation across the metro of communities on you know, ideas of what Beggars Night might look like. I think the idea that a lot of people really think is important, that we try to find some consistency across the communities in the metro. Right now, we're waiting for some guidance from the Polk County Health Department as far as what they might suggest that cities consider in conducting their Beggars Night. So my understanding is, as of last week, they thought there may be some guidance within the next couple of weeks. So as soon as we hear something, we will share that with the mayor and council and figure out what Beggars Night might look like in Johnston and across the metro area as well. So just want to let you know we're still having those conversations. The date hasn't changed. We've always landed on the October 30th. It's just what it might look like for this year, to make sure we have a safe Beggars Night. So I wanted to also mention I've been providing the mayor and council updates from Des Moines Waterworks on the operational information. We know we've been in a significant drought situation. There's been certain items that the Des Moines Waterworks has had to address regarding the quality of water, and that you know, basically changes all the time depending on the source water for the Raccoon River and the Des Moines River. And so the only question I have this evening, are those updates helpful? And I've been providing the council about every second or third update because they don't really change significantly, but at least sort of giving you an idea of some of the issues that Des Moines Waterworks is dealing with related to water service. So is that information helpful? Should I stop sending those to you, or do you still want to see that information?
Jim, this is Suresh. I think that's useful information to know, but I don't think we need it so frequently.
Okay. And just also, they are not going to provide it as frequently now because they feel like they're past some of the real critical issues. Primarily, a lot of it was related to the high usage when people are irrigating their lawns, and we know we've been in a drought situation. So, but yes, I appreciate that. Does everybody pretty much agree? Maybe not doing it as often, but the information is, you would like to see that information every now and then.
I would agree with that.
Okay. All right, good. I just wanted to get some feedback on that. And then I'll mention one other thing, and then again, there's a couple things we'll mention when we get to the staff comments in the council meeting. But the group of citizens that are working on the climate change, I know that Councilman Cope, Councilwoman Martin, and the mayor were involved in the initial conversation. They have another conversation scheduled for this Thursday, and I think all of you have agreed to participate in that. But I just wanted to confirm that the three of you want to continue in that role, or do you want other council members to be considered to participate in the climate change committee? We've already discussed, that being more of a citizen-driven discussion, but certainly they want feedback and participation from the city as well. So I just wanted to make sure that council members Cope and Martin are okay with continuing in that role, or would you prefer to have somebody else take on that role?
So I would, speaking for myself, I'd be willing to allow another council member, if they were interested, to get in on these conversations. I think they're very important. And the more questions that the council can ask ahead of time would be great. So I do not have to be at this meeting that is this Thursday at 9 o'clock if someone else would like to take my place.
Yeah, I would like to continue to serve on the committee, and I think, and I'm sure there's others who are interested in serving as well. And to a certain extent, it's not a public body meeting, and so in a lot of ways that should, it should allow for more folks to participate. That's kind of to me, it's not an official city meeting, so I'm not sure we have to worry about the limitation of the 2 members, and so it's whether we disclose that it's a public meeting, or frankly, if we want to just say, hey, look, this meeting is happening, and notify the public. And so if people want to participate, I'm kind of agnostic. Or if this specific meeting, we want to tighten it up a little bit, just because we may have some specific questions about the process for this one that the University of Northern Iowa does. I'm really flexible, but if others want to participate in future meetings, I don't have a problem with that.
This is Suresh. I think I'll participate in that climate meeting. I'll take that position.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear all that, Suresh.
Oh, I didn't. Hold on a second. I have something wrong with my mic. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Yes, I will participate in that meeting.
You want to participate?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
I'll make sure we get the information. There's a meeting at 9 o'clock on Thursday, or this Thursday on the 24th, I believe.
Okay.
I'll send that information to you.
It might be helpful too, Jim, to circulate the City of Des Moines inventory that they did. And I know, Mayor, you've seen that. I saw that on the internet somewhere, but it might be, I thought there was having that to look at before Thursday might be helpful, because it was done by the same UNI organization.
I think that's a great idea. Thank you, Councilman Cope.
Thank you. That's all I have for right now.
Okay, well, we are at 6:59, so if you want to take a 1-minute break, we'll start up at 7 o'clock. The work session is adjourned.